We're in person. This is so weird.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get situated here, Dave.
But as we always do, we're just off and rolling.
Yeah.
I've been down, basically laying down for 4.5 days.
Dude.
Just revive myself. Because you're about to leave, and I'm like, man, I got to get better enough just to get one show in.
So I'm out of here tomorrow. I got to catch a bus, right? 3:30 bus. Get me there 5:30. Flight takes off at 8. I'll be fine. I thought it was either the ice cream cake that took you down, or it was a bunch of sick bacteria kids at the water park.
No, it was the kids
swimming in the kiddie pool. Yeah,
man,
that'll do it to you.
I don't want to say it, but man, fuck them kids.
Fuck them kids, man. Damn. So I wanted to jump off the show today. First show in person in 25 weeks, so this feels pretty damn cool. And our first ever in-person guest, which is, aside from Dave, these are my two best friends. Corey is with us, our first ever guest on Hangin' with Homie. Let's go.
I know there's an applause button, but I don't know which one it is.
Yeah. So
we'll
I wanted to tell you guys, last night, right? So I'm staying in Portland at Dawn's, okay? And I had picked up Encino Man on DVD, right? Because the lady lives in Encino, so she thinks the movie's all about Encino. And Don's like, yeah, I'm not really sure how to access. I was like, oh, just change it to HDMI 3. I'm sure that's what it is. Lo and behold, it is. We turn on the player. Immediately, a porno starts playing, okay? What? I'm standing there with a woman who I consider like a mother to me. And the DVD title comes up. This girl rips off her shirt in the car, right? And the DVD is called A Long Way From Home, Lonely on the Road.
You ain't lying.
So this is you and Julia in the room together.
Julia wasn't in there. It was just me and Dawn.
Oh, it's even worse.
Yeah, it was so awkward. And then she starts just panicking and trying to eject the DVD. She goes, oh, this must be my husband. Oh, my God. And she's trying to...
blame it on someone else.
Yeah. It was just the funniest thing. And it was so uncomfortable. But then immediately after, we could not stop laughing about it. Because, what are the odds of that? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a story forever.
Oh, it was so good. That
never goes away. That's like Thanksgiving time. Hey, you remember that porno that you were watching?
Oh, my gosh.
What was the name of that one again?
It was so funny, dude.
Ebony Beauties?
Oh, dude. Well, because that made me think of the Daryl story we've told on the show before. But now we can have another account because that was Corey's apartment. He was there.
It was my apartment, yeah. I was living with Sam.
Yeah, Ian. And somebody named Joe. Who moved out randomly in the middle of the night one time.
And Sam might have moved out at that point.
Okay.
He might have, because he just started dating Sarah.
Right.
So they left. So I think Joe took the upstairs bedroom, and I moved into Sam's room. And then Daryl moved into that little side room there.
He did,
with all the rent-to-center.
Yeah, he went to Aaron's, bro.
Yeah.
Rented everything.
Yeah.
It was one of those places.
It was one of those, yeah. And he rented his entire... We kept saying, well, he's rented his whole life.
Yeah.
And then it was like 2 months later, he was repoed.
Gone.
Yeah.
That's tough. It's just all of a sudden... Daryl, we're here for the stuff.
Yeah, and we were just hanging out.
Yeah.
I want to say you and I had just got back from doing a run on the boulevard.
Bro, when me and Dave posted this story originally, Daryl came after me in the comments section on Facebook.
I saw that, yeah.
And he was like...
Denying, right?
Denying. No, it was only an Xbox or something or
like, bro, there was way too many witnesses.
Oh, yeah. But all along, he just outed himself.
Oh, yeah.
Because you didn't say which Daryl it was.
No.
Right.
Just say it's me.
Yeah.
Oh, totally, dude.
I think people who know, they know.
Yeah, they know. What's man, we were just talking before this, and the coolest thing is like seeing you doing well. Just had a birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
2 days ago now?
Yeah, 37 years old,
man.
Bro. Who'd have thought I'd make it this far, you know? I'll take it. But it was cool, man. Coming to Maine and just, I'll be honest with you, like, a lot of it has been real nostalgic, but as excited as I am to be here, it's also a little bit sad. Because you kind of like remember certain things in certain areas, and then so many things have changed, and I've been away now for 6 years, and I get to come back and celebrate my birthday and do a little something and try to show the lady around and sell her on Maine. Realize that I totally buried the lead, right? Last night, we bring her to Munjoy Hill, the Eastern Prom.
Nice.
I didn't realize how beautiful it was.
Beautiful spot.
Because
Beautiful,
growing up, that was the hood.
It was.
Yeah, they had a really high crime rate up there. I know that
Yeah.
there was a lot of stabbings. All the gangs were
Right.
from that area, the biker gangs and stuff like that.
Yeah, so
there was a lot of
I
poverty.
didn't bring her up there. She's like, "Why didn't you bring me up here?" I was like, "Because I didn't think it'd be safe for us. I didn't know any better because I've been away for so long."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I think she liked that the most. Really liked your place. Really liked Lindsay, your wife. Really
Yeah.
thought the kids were the cutest. And I was like, she's like, "Oh, that big front porch, like with the rocking chairs."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's what we always talked about. So I think I did my best. You know, it was a collaborative effort to kind of like sell a California girl to move to New England. It's like,
That's tough.
It's a tough one, yeah. Especially because she hasn't really experienced the winter.
yeah.
That is the. So I had just a quick sidebar. I had an employee, good friend of mine. His name is Josh Diaz. And if you know, his name's Josh Diaz. He's Mexican. He's a little tiny Mexican kid.
Shout out to Josh.
Yeah, he's an awesome kid. He was such a hard worker. I met him down in Texas at a job site, and I really liked him, and I convinced him to move to Maine to come work for me. And he was married with a kiddo, and so I said, it'd be really great. You can be my full-time assistant, all this great stuff. And he moved up. He made the move. They offered him a deal. And when he got here, they didn't have work for him because it was the middle of the winter. So our dead season is right in the middle of the winter.
Yeah.
And so the poor kid is stuck in Bangor.
Oh no, that's like its own state up there.
Yeah, working at a fabrication lot and inspecting welds. And I wasn't a part of it, so he wasn't working for me. And they kind of roped him into it, being like, "Oh, this is how we can afford to keep you here."
Right.
The company did.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't even working for me. So it wasn't even like he was doing the crappy stuff.
Yeah.
And so his wife, being Mexican herself, had never experienced the winter, nor did he really.
Yep.
And by the springtime, they were like, "Let's
We're
get us
done."
out of here.
Yeah.
Like, we cannot do that." It was brutal for them. I mean, and again, you're in Bangor, of
Yeah.
all places. What a
That's
hole.
tough.
Yeah.
That's the end of civilization.
It really is.
In my mind.
Well, yeah, the speed limit turns like 75 as soon as you pass Bangor. So that's how
Yeah.
you know.
Until you hit the county, and then it's 25.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you'll run into a moose. You will legitimately
100%.
run into
Yeah.
a moose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dave, like when we've spent a lot of time away from home, and we always exaggerate how difficult winters are, and we're nor'easter every other weekend, Bob, and we're shoveling out of the house, and I'm like telling her all these stories. I'm hurting my chances.
100%. Yeah, you're killing yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, they are, and they're long, but the crazy thing is that you become prideful of that all
Yeah.
the time, right?
Yeah,
You're like,
I can
you're
handle
like,
it.
you get a little, you stick your chest
You're like,
out,
I
and you're like,
did
I'm a
that.
little harder than most people are. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm in an industry that is blue collar. It's very
Yeah.
blue collar. And I go down to the South, and I'm not crapping on people from the South.
We love the South around here.
But I go down and work with people in Texas and in Georgia and
Yeah.
Louisiana and Alabama, and we're a different type of people.
yeah.
We're a different breed up here. Like, we are working much longer shifts, much longer hours. They're taking breaks every 15 minutes. It is wild to be a
Yeah.
part of something where to us, me and my assistant John, he and I, we just get after it.
Yep.
And we're going and we're like, we're doing this until the job is done. We're
Get it done
not
today.
stopping. And I remember quoting a job years ago, and I had one of my bosses at the time asked me if I would go down and teach a crew of guys how to do an inspection on a tank down there. Mm-hmm. And so this was down in Texas. And so I flew down, and he and I are on the job site together. And I said, okay, well, we get in this tank. It's only like a 60-foot diameter tank, which is really not that big.
Yeah.
Especially for us. And so I was like, he says, well, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and I want you to run the crew. And I said, yeah, no problem. I got this. And I said, I get this done in a day.
Right.
And he says, Corey, we got 2 weeks.
Oh gosh.
I'm like, 2
What?
weeks? I'm like, first off, no.
No, I'm
I
not
gotta
hanging
get
out
home
here for 2 weeks,
I
bro.
I got shit to do, dude.
Yeah.
I ain't hanging out in Texas for 2 weeks. It's 125 degrees
Golly.
out. You go inside of those tanks, it's 140.
Yeah.
You're sweating your tail off. They make you wear full suits, a pack on your back, a pack on your hip
Yeah.
for breathing. I was like, this.
Yeah.
That was enough for me. I was like, yeah. And again, it gave me a perspective. And I'm watching these guys, and they're like, well, let's go sit in the truck for an hour.
Let's go hang out a little while.
Sit in the
Hour or
AC.
two.
Oh yeah, on the job site. And I'm like, we could be done right now.
So
guys.
was that a product of they budget 2 weeks, or the job is supposed to take 2?
So
or
that no.
does it really take 1?
It takes 1, right? It takes 1. They budgeted for 2 because the money's there.
Right.
It's a product of the environment. It's a product of the money. I mean, you think about it, especially because I'm in the oil industry.
Oh,
right?
this is going to be a 2-week job, by the way, kind of thing.
Exactly right. Well, that's exactly right. They can, and they're basing it on what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
How long? It
Yeah,
takes
the comps
everyone.
of the industry.
It's exactly right. So they're not. We're up here. We're trying to get stuff done fast because guess what? We only got 4 months of good weather to get it done, and then you're in the middle of the winter,
And then it's dark, super early.
yeah, nobody's going to turn, take the product out of a tank because it's going to sit cold. So you got to go fast. And see, our days are shorter. Our days are, we got to get it done. Our weather's weird, right?
Yeah.
Right.
They always say the old saying in Maine, right? Like if you don't like the weather, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right? It's the truth. It's
gonna change.
It's going to rain, right?
I like that.
Today's a good example of that. It
Yeah.
was beautiful this morning.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of crappy out, and then it'll start raining here soon, and then it'll be nice, beautiful tomorrow.
Yeah, it's been gorgeous this whole week. And I'm
you guys got
told by
lucky.
Dawn, she's like, we've literally had like 6 days of sun in the last month or so.
Yeah.
She's right. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
been brutal. It's been wild.
Man.
But like I said, so the oil industry down there is really popular, right? This is
Yeah.
where all the refineries are. All the ships go in there.
Yeah.
You think about where they're digging oil. Texas is a big place for that. A lot of chemical plants down there, all that stuff. So the industry's huge down there. So again, they're able to raise their rates. That was always the argument that we used to have because the cost of living is very similar, right? The cost of living up in Maine as opposed to down south is really, really similar, if not worse, when you go up here. Now, the irony of that is those guys down there would get paid $10, $15 an hour more
Really?
than what we would be paid in Maine. And I would have debates with my employers, and I'd say, hey, this guy's got the same amount of certifications. I have more experience than him. How come he's getting paid more than I'm getting paid? And they're like, well, it's the cost of living. I'm like,
Wow.
no, it's not. Because in Portland, Maine, it costs way more to live in Houston, Texas. And they're like, go move to the sticks, bub.
No, cost of living. I've found when a company says that, it's always just an excuse.
It's an excuse.
Yeah.
because they're trying to drive the bottom line.
No
so if you're
doubt
not
about
in
it.
charge of the company, you don't know that. Why would they ever share that information with you?
100%. It's a bunch of bullshit.
It's the same thing as like, hey, you need to work more shifts. You need to do this and that. You're like, well, yeah, I mean, I signed my contract, so I guess I have to. What other choice do I have?
That's all you
what I'm here
got, right?
for.
And to ask for a raise is hard for anybody.
Yeah.
Right? It's not an easy thing
Any
to do.
level.
Any level.
Because
and
any
that's right.
employer ever will make you feel like, oh, you're doing a good job, but you're not worthy of like this next.
No,
you know what
no.
I mean?
And they're not going to give you enough compliments to make you feel worthy.
Yeah,
Right? They're not going to do that. And that's I get it. If you're running a business, you got to run a business, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to make as much money for the least amount of work as possible. That's the name of the game, right? So I understand it to some degree. It was definitely it becomes defeating after a while.
Oh,
You start to kind of be like, well, I know my worth, and then you say, well,
second guess
should
yourself.
I move? And then you're like, that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, there really is no better place to raise a family than Maine.
No, there's not, dude.
That's just a fact.
And you really get a perspective on that, and Dave can speak to it. Just being out of town, out of state for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, let's see. I think total it was like 16 years.
Golly,
I hadn't lived here for
That's
a full
wild.
calendar year.
right. But you would like pop back once in a while,
Yeah, a couple months here,
know.
maybe a couple weeks.
regroup.
It's there's no I've been to every state except Hawaii and Alaska, traveled the world, but there's
Wow.
no better place to raise a
So
family.
the question I guess is because the way I look at it is when I was in my early 20s, as a teenager,
You went down to Tampa,
I went to Tampa and I couldn't wait to get back.
Yeah.
I left. I came. I
but
just
you couldn't wait to leave.
And then as soon as I started having a family,
Right.
my entire perspective changed.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to be anywhere else. And then all of a sudden you're in another state, and I'm sure this happened to you, and I'm sure this happens to you, Jeff, is that you start to feel prideful of where you're from.
Oh yeah,
You do.
If you
For
meet
some
anybody,
strange reason,
yeah.
you're like, all of a sudden you're like, no, I'm a Mainer.
Oh yeah, I got this.
And again, there's some weird tax that comes along with that,
Yeah.
because you're like, I'm kind of tougher than you are,
Yeah.
right? I have a little bit thicker skin than you do.
Yeah.
I had to shovel every winter as a kid.
Get out of my door.
Like, I got these weird muscles in places that
Yeah.
they shouldn't be,
Yeah,
here and here and here,
Right.
you know, that nobody else has.
I love that,
unless you're
dude.
from New England.
Yep.
And really, unless you're from Maine, because I really don't even like, you know, no offense to people from Massachusetts, but I still don't associate myself as being a part of that
right.
No.
region. Like, I don't even feel like when I tell people I'm from New England, I try to really emphasize, no, I'm from Maine.
Yeah.
I'm
They're
from-
like, that's all the way over. That's
that's-
a lot of people that I've met throughout, like moving to Nashville and they're like, oh, that's in Canada, right?
Oh yeah,
Southern Canada, dude.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
so can.
Basically.
It kind of is. Yeah, it really is. I mean, I do a lot of work with people from Canada.
Yeah.
They'll come down, and honestly, the personalities are very similar. The work ethic is very similar. The only problem with Canada is that we can't do work there, but they can do work here.
Interesting. Okay.
There's a weird law in Canada that doesn't allow contractors from the United States to do work in Canada.
Yeah.
So it sucks.
That is
and
weird.
because I could get a lot of work there.
True.
We're so close, right? We're so
Yeah.
close. We're next door. I have one of my biggest clients is Irving Oil,
Yeah.
which is a Canadian company.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, right. And I know because you see them everywhere, right
Yeah.
around here, especially New England. And
I thought it was Michael Irving.
yeah, that would make sense. Yeah,
The deep cut.
and so yeah, the unfortunate part about it is that they could be given. They're my biggest client. They
Right.
give me, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in revenue stream, and I could be doing work there, and I can't because there's some weird
That's
Canadian
so
law.
interesting.
And
I
I've
didn't know
tried.
that.
It's
Yeah.
not without effort. I've made some hard efforts. Like, couldn't you just
Right.
get me in as a consultant? No, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, we're breaking too many, you know, federal laws and stuff like that. I'm like,
Man, that's so interesting.
yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
It kind of kills me at the end of the day
Yeah.
because again, there's you know, Canada's our next door neighbors.
Oh,
you know?
100%. Yeah.
Just as tough. Deal with worse weather, you could argue.
Absolutely. Now we do work in Alaska too. So
Yeah.
we have an office in Alaska.
That's right. I remember you telling me that last
Yeah.
time I came to town.
I haven't been yet, but I plan to go here at
Yeah.
some point soon. I got John, my assistant, my second-hand man. He's going to Guam
What?
next month for a month.
Dude, that's a trip.
That's a trip. Yeah, I offered to go, but I just, you know, I got too much work
John's
here.
single. Like
He's single. He can do
come
it.
on.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and they need me here. I'm the regional manager, so I need to be where I
Yeah.
am. I need to handle my region.
Yeah.
So,
Careful with the desk.
Yeah,
we
sorry.
can hear it in the cans. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start banging on it.
Right.
Yeah. So he's going to Guam, so that'll be fun for
That's
him.
how long of a trip is that from here?
So I want to say it's pretty much a whole day. So it's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, right?
Golly.
If you
Closer from LA.
right,
I think. Yeah.
right, yes, absolutely. So it's considered.
He's
part
going
of
across the
Asia.
country and then some.
Yep.
Right, it's part of Asia.
But isn't it a U.S. territory?
It is kind of U.S.
Right?
So we have an air base there. So
Right,
that's
that's
how
right,
we
that's
got
right.
the work. It's government work. It's United States government work that we're doing. So
Okay.
we have and you're only able to. I guess they only do transportation to and from Guam every
Right.
2 weeks.
Okay.
So when you go, you have to stay
For 2 weeks.
You gotta make it.
no matter what. So
even if the job is only like a 5-7 day job for him.
correct,
he
right?
has to-
I think it's only that's what it is. I think it's like a week-long job, but they're gonna have to be there for longer because.
Well, I mean, he'll get to like be a tourist for a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, that's what he's kind of excited about. He likes doing that. He likes to go to different, places around the United States and the world. I mean, he went to Puerto Rico and spent time there.
Nice.
And
That's cool.
did a lot of a lot of sightseeing while we were
There's
down
tanks
while I was
all
down
over the
there.
world.
There's tanks over the world, and that was piping down
Okay.
in Puerto Rico. So a lot of piping.
Is that the ones where you send the little RC car through the pipes?
So you can, yeah. There is.
That's so cool.
There is
I'm
stuff
good
like
to
that.
hear about this,
So
Dave.
there's a
Bring that mic up close to you.
there's a machine. It's called a pig. They call it a pig, and the
I
reason
love
why
it.
they call it a pig is that they fit it into the pipe, right? So if you can kind of picture it, it's like this circular thing. They fit it into a pipe, and they shoot it through. And when it's going through, it squeals.
Yeah.
So that's
Like
why
a pig.
That's why they call it a pig. And now there's two types of pigs. There's a cleaning pig, which they use regularly to push the product out of a long pipe, right? So it will go underground and all that stuff, and they're able to track it. And then there's a inspection pig, and that will track corrosion and any other discontinuities that are going on.
So cool.
So yeah, it's pretty neat. And I always love this story because one night I got a call from a client, and they said, this is at Portland Pipeline. We're over here in South Portland, and they said, yeah, Corey, we lost a pig and we can't find it. And I was like, how did you lose a pig?
It's so loud.
Yeah, well, not only that, it's like, how did you do that?
In the pipe,
in the pipe. And they're like, well, we think it might have got stuck in a T-joint. So think about the joint, and there's a T, right?
Yep.
And they're like, maybe it got jammed up in the T-joint. And it goes underground, a lot of it. So
did you have to go in the pipe?
So they have so they have a sensor.
That's
and I've done that.
I've
done that. I've done crazy stuff like that. But they have a sensor that you kind of run. It's like a scanner, and you're able to usually track them. Well, they said that their sensor was broken, so they couldn't find it. And they're like, what we want you to do, and this is crazy to me, what we want you to do is we want you to bring an X-ray crew over and X-ray the pipe in different areas and see if you can find it. I'm like, first off, this is like hundreds of feet of pipe.
Yeah, come on. This is like a whole day gig here.
Do you even have the equipment for that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do X-ray.
So at least you have that.
Oh, yeah, but it's not cheap. And you think about it, X-ray is a radioactive source.
Yeah.
So you're shooting through steel.
Yeah.
So you're
Core's
getting,
around,
I'm around a lot of radiation a lot, but I don't do it anymore.
Explains quite a bit.
I got out of that as soon as I could. And I'm arguing with this guy over there. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, why would you do it that way? That's wild. So I, just using common sense and logic, I said, well, okay, what kind of pig was it? And he said it was a cleaning pig. I said, well, let me ask you this: how much of the product came out of the piping? And he said, all of it. I said, well, if all of it came out,
then the pig did too.
The pig is in the trap.
Yeah.
So there's a trap at the end of where the trap.
Oh,
but as soon as you let the pressure out, like you screw up the whole process. So they didn't want to check.
Come
so
on.
I was like, I guess we can X-ray right there. And he was like, no, we're not doing it. So I took a slag hammer, which is like it's just a metal hammer that has pointy ends on it.
Okay.
It's for hitting welds and cleaning welds and stuff like that. I took a slag hammer over to it, and I started knocking on it, listening for it to be hollow or not. And sure as shit, I go right over the trap, and I'm like, and then there it is. And I'm like, it's in there. And they go, if Harlan Weber's grandson just found the friggin' pig with a slag hammer, they're like, we're gonna all quit our jobs.
We're all done.
And they refused to check. They refused to check.
Come on.
And they still made us shoot X-ray. Now, mind you, it's 2 a.m, pouring out. So we're out there with our equipment and all this. And they're like, we want you to check here, 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 and here. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So we do it, and again, that's kind of always been my mindset, and my grandfather instilled this in me, and I try to do it with my guys is, we just grab it and growl.
Yeah.
Just do whatever you got to do to get the job done.
Grip it and rip it, bro.
Grip it and rip it. You don't care. You just do it. You put your head down and you get it done. So we did it. I spent the whole night. The sun's coming up, I'm like, whatever. It's the middle of the winter too. So it's raining. It's the middle of the winter. I'm miserable. I haven't seen the kids in like a few days because I was on a job. So I'm like, oh my God. So anyways, I get a call like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Because I get no results for them. I give them an X-ray that's like blank. There's nothing there, right? I get a call 2 weeks later, and they're like, so we found the pig.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where did you find it? And they're like, in the trap.
In the trap. Come on.
Like, yeah, you're welcome.
That's so funny.
They're like, I can't believe you found that there. I'm like,
is it just not being naive? Is it ego?
Oh, ego plays well, it's so I deal, and I'm not an engineer by trade, right? I didn't go to school. Right. I'm very fortunate to end up in the position that I did. But there's a benefit to doing the work the way I did it over the years, and to rise the way I rose, because I dealt with a lot of practical.
Sure, you're not learning through theory. You're learning through. I remember when this thing happened.
On the job training.
And the old saying, I think it was Abraham Lincoln said, right? Common sense isn't as common as you would think.
Right? Yeah, Thomas Paine. Common sense.
Yes, right. 100%. So and it goes a long ways, and that's how I was brought up. Try to use common sense and logic to solve your problems.
Like the pig is probably in the trap, guys.
Right. Think about it.
What's
break
the
it down.
simplest thing?
But an engineer or
Occam's
someone
razor,
who's
right?
gone to school, like you said, and learned the theory, might say to themselves, "Whoa, we got to break it down mathematically, and we got to do this and that." And
That's
it's like,
too easy.
Yeah.
it's too easy. Yeah, you're finding this too. And I find that almost every problem that I have, there's an easy resolution to it. Every single time.
Yeah, same with tech. Every
Yeah.
time you're like, man, there's just one thing with
Yeah.
the camera. I'm like, well, did you try this? You're like, you know what? That was it.
Or it's
Yeah.
like, Dave, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
And then
And
you're
I'm
like,
oh yeah, let me just turn up the USB.
yeah, and I'm like, or my pod's
4
down.
times at
Oh
least.
my, it's just, and you unplug everything and plug it back in because that's the universal fix for everything, you know?
Yeah, I mean it is though. That's the
Yeah.
crazy thing is that it. I mean that's why they say.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Right,
Yeah.
it was the IT show there.
IT crowd.
The IT crowd, right? That's all he would say
Hello,
every time.
IT.
They immediately pick up the phone, right? Oh, I love that
So
show.
now, me too. So you're in the oil industry, but we all started
Yeah.
trying to get into the music industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that we were gonna get some good,
Yeah.
like different perspective
Sure.
of when we all got started,
Sure.
and a lot of it I wasn't around for.
Right. So,
But it's like you and probably Ryan,
Yeah.
but mostly you have been around for every phase of DNR,
Right.
of all the different groups.
Sure.
yeah, well, long before Corey was like a, engineer and father of the year and all that, we actually met each other because a girl was, whispering in both of our ears
Yeah.
that we wanted to fight each other. I didn't know that he existed. This girl, Elizabeth, I'll put her name up there. I don't give a...
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, I don't give a care, you know? And so, of all places for us to meet up and fight this out, like it's, the Greasers versus the Socias, we decided to go to adult night at Happy Wheels on Tuesday night.
Skate off. It's a
off.
skate off.
Yeah.
Skate off.
The question is who was who?
Yeah, oh gosh.
I think we were both all riffraffs.
Yeah, we all were. And I couldn't pick Corey out of a lineup. I had no idea who he was.
Yeah.
And we get there, and of course he rolls with his entire crew to the roller rink. I roll in, pun intended, with my entire crew to the roller rink, just for us to fight each other who have never met each other.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I was like, I don't know, he seems all right. So we just start talking, and he was like, oh, she said that to me too. And then I was like, wait a minute, and then she said, I was like, oh, that son of a, yeah. And it was like, why would somebody try to just do that?
Yeah.
I don't understand why.
Well, I think it was she liked both of us.
Could be.
I would imagine.
She wanted some dudes to like fight over her, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure some weird ego
Yeah,
trip.
could be.
Who knows? We were so young.
Yeah.
And I like you said, I feel like it got diffused so quickly that it was irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like it to me, it was such a small part.
Yeah.
And the the rise and fall of all that stuff.
Right.
Of that time period, because that time period was really crazy.
It was.
And if in retrospect, looking back, I look at it and say, it was kind of a short time.
Yeah.
But when we were in the moment, it felt like it was going on forever.
It's that saying where it's like,
Yeah, well
I wish
said.
they would tell me that we were in the good times before they passed,
I wish you knew I was in the good times, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that Michael Scott who said
Or
that?
no, the good times. Or was it, I wish I knew I was in the good old days before they
Right,
ended, kind of
right,
thing.
right.
Yeah. And yeah, from there we became best buds.
Yep.
I was kind of off and on with my relationship with my mom, and they were living in Scarborough. So Corey and them just ended up letting me move in for free. I just slept on his floor. I didn't pay
You
rent.
slept on my floor.
Yeah.
That's probably why you have bad back problems.
Could
now.
be, dude. And from just carrying this whole DNR thing all these years.
Yeah, dude, it's a lot of weight.
And but then it's all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. Not only are we all like hooligans and running around with what we thought were gangs, but we're also rappers too. Like his own crew of rappers and mine with Nick and Martise and the whole roster and all that. So then it was like, wow. And then it was like both of our crews met like their
they're equal parts.
Yeah,
right?
like if you look at it,
Yeah.
like you line up 5, like I matched with Corey,
Right.
and Alex matched with Biggie, and this person matched with, and then it was like, it all just became this like super crew. But Corey and I were always the ones that I felt like took it super seriously and wanted to be really good at it.
Yeah, we had a similar drive and passion, right? Like I feel like that as a person, and I feel like that you're the same way too, Dave, is that we're goal-oriented human beings,
Yeah.
right? Like I can't just do something. I struggled a lot to do something that involves passion for fun.
Yeah.
I cannot do it. Like going to band practices with my guys, I would get angry.
It was so serious.
If we started to screw off. And you were supposed to be there for fun to some degree,
Yeah.
right? But my mindset is so like, if I'm going to spend my time and do this, we're not screwing around, guys.
No.
We're going to I've got like a list of 10 things that we need to get done, and we need to perfect every single one of these things. And to me it was like a waste of time if we didn't. And it drove me crazy. So
Yeah.
the nice thing about our friendship was that we both felt that way.
Yeah.
And so no matter what, and in turn, it became fun.
Yeah.
So the fun came from us being passionate
And pushing.
about something and pushing each other and being goal oriented
Yeah.
and meeting goals and trying to do something bigger and better than what we were doing. So I feel like that you gain a little bit of perspective on life in general when you're able to do something and do something that you love and it's still fun.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And you're still meeting goals, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kind
and
of a
this
cool
was,
thing.
Yeah. So about what year was this? Was it like 2006? I think we met.
2006.
Yeah. So I was like, I was fresh out of high school.
Same.
Dave just went off to college, maybe a year in, or his
just
first
a year in.
Yeah, and Ryan's back here still. We're doing the DNR thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think. No, because I don't think DNR started until 2007. So
Yeah.
we met even before that, and this is
We
when
did.
I had recorded One for the Money,
Yeah.
and what would go on to become my name, Your Favorite Homie,
yeah.
with Braden down on State
Right.
Street in Portland.
Yep.
And I remember Corey telling me one of his buddies at the time was telling everybody that he was on my song.
Yeah, he said he was the one saying some catch line on it.
Yeah.
And he kept saying it to us, and we didn't even know
You didn't know me.
him at the time. And I'm like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about? And I'm like, we knew he was full of it.
Yeah.
We're like, that doesn't sound like you.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
It was Braden.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Braden.
Yeah.
Who's the
Because
one that did
obviously
it.
he's
Yeah.
doing the ad libs because
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not gonna hire somebody else.
No.
Yeah,
And it was so weird. Yeah, and then I remember
But you could get away with that before social media.
100%.
You could just
yeah.
lie.
you can just lie. Yeah.
Yeah.
He messed with me like probably the second or third time we ever hung out. We're 12. It was Another Bad Creation.
yeah, it was just like rap
The
boys
Spider-Man.
group. Yeah.
Some song, and he's like, yo, Dave, I'm on this song
Yeah.
and this other one, and for like at least a day, I was like, wow, that's really cool.
I just let him believe it.
You let me believe it, and then I think I talked to Tim. He's like, man, don't listen to him about
that's
that.
ABC, man. I was like, I got you.
I was thinking about with beats, right?
Yeah.
We were able to
Yep.
snag beats, and the universe, the accessibility to music in general was very difficult at that time.
Yeah,
right.
it was very different,
You had
yeah.
LimeWire and you had Kazam, right? Was that the other one?
Kazaa.
right?
Yeah.
And so Kazam wasn't the Shack.
Because it was an excellent Shaq film. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But that was it. That was like all we had. We couldn't just go on like
No.
YouTube and find stuff.
No.
It didn't exist.
we
Yeah,
had
YouTube was like
SoundClick.
very, very new.
And SoundClick was
SoundClick's
new.
where we got all the beats.
Everything that people have easy access to now was brand new.
Yeah.
And you really didn't have. I mean, I didn't even have a cell phone. Honest to God, I didn't have a cell phone until I was 21 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was fine with it. I didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
And when I got
yeah.
one, I'm like,
Okay.
sweet. And same with a laptop. I didn't have a computer. We didn't have a PC in my home until I had already gone off to college.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was using a typewriter.
That's
through
Dude,
high
that's
school.
OG.
It was
Typewriter.
crazy. And I would get points off of papers. I remember this so well because it used to upset me so much. I get points off of papers for the font being wrong or
come
the
on.
spacing being wrong.
It's the only font
or
I got.
typos. Like it would drive me nuts. They were like, we don't really care what you're writing about. We don't care about the
Yeah.
context.
No.
All we care about
Punctuation.
is punctuations.
Yeah.
And I'm a good writer, and
Oh, yeah.
that was one of my things that I was really good in. But I would get like 5 to 10 points off of every single paper I wrote because they're like, well, the margins are off.
And you're like, why don't you guys buy me a computer?
They're like, why is there whiteout?
Yeah, why is there not
right?
the computers in the school?
Especially at that school.
Yeah.
Right?
And now it's common. Every kid in the school has like an iPad or
a laptop
something.
now. Yeah.
I've been very adamant about my kids not having
Screen time.
Yeah.
We do TV every now and again. We'll watch movies together as a family. But they don't know how to really use a phone. They don't know how to use a
really good.
iPad. My mindset is when we get home, we're going to go do something.
Family time.
Like, I don't care what it is. We're just going to do an activity.
Yep.
And that's how Ollie got really into martial arts.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing it. So I'm like, you know what? Especially when it was misbehaving. This is kind of like a funny way of keeping him on track. Was like, hey, we're going to go down in the basement.
Yeah.
Like, you misbehaved today at school. I got a call from your teacher.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to go down in the basement. We're going to go work out. And I just have him hit the mitts for like an hour. And he loved it.
Yeah.
And it made him a better kid. And it made me a better person. And it's become our thing. And now
you're the coach.
Yeah. And me and
That's
him
cool.
and my wife, Lindsay, and my daughter, Camilla, we're all 4 of us. We're going down in the basement together and hitting the mitts and hitting the
pads,
bag.
yeah.
And it's our thing.
So
and
cool.
grappling and and doing classes. And it's like Lindsay watches the UFC fights with me every Saturday, basically.
She loves it.
She loves it.
Yeah. We used to get into our own UFC fights every Saturday,
Yeah,
Friday,
that's for
Thursday. You know?
Yo, I stayed out of all the fights.
Yeah, you missed, dude.
All I did
seriously?
was study and play
were,
sports.
You were
That's
smart. You were the
all I
smarter
did.
one of us. I always tell Jeff, I'm like, Dave was the intelligent one out of the group of us.
Oh,
like,
100%.
You were like you came from a good life, a good family.
Yep.
Like you had you were very fortunate.
Very. And I was like, you know what? This is pretty good over here. I'm going to stay over here.
Yeah, your personality, even now, even knowing you now, like your personality is not. You don't have to have edge in it. Like you don't have a chip on your shoulder.
No.
Me and Jeff walk around with a chip on the size of the Grand Canyon on our shoulder.
Yeah.
And that, honest to God, and I do that in my job. I do that in my life. That's the way I am. I'm
going to prove you wrong even if I don't have to.
100%. I felt, and you and I have talked about it. It was especially because of our relationships with our fathers.
Yep.
Right? Like I'm
Or lack
always,
thereof, yeah.
Yeah, or lack thereof. My father was very judgy of me as a kid, and it used to get to me to no end, and it gave me so much drive to prove that I can do it. Whatever he says I can't do, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it 10 times better than he thought I could, and I'm going to do it my way.
Yep.
And I'm going to prove to you that my way is the right way, and that was my mindset. And in reality, you learn over time that it's not always that black and white, and that there's a negative and a positive to having that mentality. It's definitely got me in trouble. It got us in a lot of trouble when we were younger. We were lucky we're not in prison for
because you couldn't just film everything in 4K from your pocket.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like the cell phones like that didn't exist.
That's a good point.
And there wasn't cameras in every street corner of Portland downtown. You know?
But I think you guys would have taken a lot less chances.
100%.
Like you said, if you knew, well, somebody's going to film this.
We would have.
Yeah.
Certain people.
Right, because because you're like, well, if I can get away with something.
That's exactly right. Our mind, we weren't trying to get in trouble. And Jeff and I always talk about this.
Yeah.
Right? It was, we thought we were vigilantes.
We did.
We legitimately, and I
Rooftop
hate
vigilantes.
to say it, it's almost embarrassing to say even now, because it's like we literally thought we were doing things for the greater good.
Yeah.
We're like, oh no, I was bullied really bad as a kid in high school.
I'm going to stand up for these people.
And I'm going to stand up for the little man, and I'm gonna see someone who's kind of walking around with a lot of attitude, and you know what, we're gonna punch him in the face.
Yeah.
And
just for wearing his extra medium Abercrombie and Fitch T-shirt.
Yeah, just because of that stupid chip on my shoulder, because of something I went
to
through.
him.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were wrong. Like that's all there is to it. There's no.
It's that whole thing, Dave, where even the bad guy in the movie thinks he's not a bad guy.
That's right.
He thinks what he's doing is for good.
100%.
You know, and that's what we thought. And then you you look back at it, and it's like, I remember one specific incident outside of the Clam Festival in Yarmouth, right? And we tell one of our pals, Biggie, yo, those guys over there are just running their mouths about you, bro.
Oh my God.
And he's like, oh, word?
A word?
Yeah, and he's just wasted.
Yeah, he had a few in him, yeah.
Walks across the street, right, to this group, this gaggle of geese, all these dudes in their muscle shirts hanging around.
And
this specific type of dude that I hated because I'd get picked on by them in school all the time. And, like, Biggie's not doing nothing. He's not doing nothing. This guy's just running his mouth and just acting superior. And finally, I just stared at his chin and just one-hitter quitter. Bam!
Yep.
Echoed down the whole street. He took a step back, plopped down right on his face, and his boys scurried like roaches.
yeah, and this was in front of the police station.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
This was, and again,
Man.
Yeah.
your perspective changes so much. Like how stupid we were to do that. But
Well, it's
at
like
the
you're
same time,
young 20-something.
right?
It's just, I mean, I'm not proud of any of that stuff, but, you know, that dude probably had it coming. Whatever.
You know what? Probably made him a better person.
Yeah, let's hope so.
I was literally just saying to John,
Yeah.
my assistant yesterday, I was saying to him about, I was talking about fighting. We were just talking about, like, you know, I was talking about how when I'm wearing boxing gloves and I'm wearing them too much and then I go to hit the bag without them, I'm punching differently.
Interesting.
My technique changes so much. And I was telling him that there's not a lot of people that you see get knocked out in real life. It's really hard to see, but I've seen Jeff do it like 10 times.
Even I've seen it a couple times.
And I'm like, like I don't know if I've ever really like one punch knocked someone out. Now I feel like I could now,
Right.
but I don't
with your
want
training
to.
and stuff.
Right,
No,
with how much
I mean,
I've
there's
trained.
too much responsibility with it now. Too much paperwork.
Well, I
That's
think
it. The paperwork, the health implications, like there's a lot.
when I started doing martial arts, I was teaching people with disabilities, right? So I would go to these brain injury centers, and I was meeting people who had injuries from getting in street fights.
Wow.
And they were hitting their head on the curb.
Yeah.
And they were
Exactly. That's
fucked
it. It's
up for
not the
life.
punch. It's after that.
After, man.
yeah. And I'm
Right.
like, I think back, did that ever happen to us? And we just don't know it.
Yeah.
And we were we scattered too quickly.
Yeah.
We just didn't see the ramifications of it. And we didn't have the news that we do now, where we're accessibility to news
About
that we
brain
do now.
injuries or CTE, and, you know, we're just...
I just didn't know. Yeah,
Or the access, you know, because now with an iPhone, you can look up anything.
Right.
If somebody hits the ground, what will happen?
Or even just the news about it, like whether or not it happened. Like we didn't even
Instantly.
know what happened to that person later on. Like they could be screwed up forever right now, and we don't know. Now I think about that a lot, and it makes me sad, and it makes me regret a lot of the things I did.
Yeah.
And thank goodness martial arts came into my life. Mm-hmm. It saved me on so many different levels. It saved me from ending up in prison. It saved me from doing just bad things. And you know, me and Jeff stayed away from drugs and alcohol, which was very fortunate.
Straight edge.
But
until you tried to bring me down to the hookah lounge. That first time.
yeah, we do a lot of hookah. That's
You
our thing.
son of a bitch.
Right?
I don't know if I ever told you that one, Dave.
No, I don't think you
Oh
did.
yeah, this is great.
Corey invites me after we had become pals from the rink. He's like, "Hey, let's go to the hookah lounge."
Like shortly after.
Yeah,
Yeah, not long. Probably maybe a month.
maybe, right?
Because I was already doing it.
Yeah.
I was already.
And I'm like, I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
What is that? What are those?
And I know convincing him to do something new, it takes a little warming up.
It was. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to remember exactly the details before that of how I even convinced him to come out with us to do that. I think it was because he knew that I didn't do drugs or alcohol. That
And
it
I
was
didn't
like,
either.
That makes sense.
He's like, well,
Oh, well,
fuck,
then, yeah,
man.
well, how bad could it be?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah,
And
sure.
you walk in, right? And this is, the hook. It was at a couple different locations, but this one that I remember the most,
It was on Exchange.
You
Yep.
like walk in, and then you go down some more stairs, right? And then I look up, and I'm like, there's just clouds of smoke everywhere. I'm like, what the hell are they doing in here?
Yeah.
And there's like trippy Alice in Wonderland stuff all over
Yeah.
the walls, and I'm like,
Right.
and I walk over to Corey, and I said, how dare you bring me into a place where this underground facility where people are just smoking drugs.
Yeah, smoking drugs. Dude.
I'm
said-
pretty sure those exact words he used.
Yeah,
like,
that sounds like it.
I live above the influence. I thought you did too.
Yeah, he was mad.
I'm
at me.
outta here.
He
Oh,
left.
you're like the dare officer.
He was.
at this
He was
point.
really. He was really mad at us. He was really
I was so
mad at me.
offended.
Yeah, and he just left us. We were just like, all
And
right,
you were like,
see ya.
what the hell?
Failed experiment.
Failed experiment, and
Yeah.
so he went home, right? Isn't that what? Because I
Yeah.
think we stayed there. We were like,
Oh yeah, you're like, what that was
Sweet.
weird.
We're like, bye.
All right, dude, see ya.
Like, have fun.
And I go home all pissed off, and then I'm like, I'm gonna look up what this is. This illegal underground where they're smoking drugs.
Dude.
So I go home and I bust out the old Google machine, right? And I'm like, hookah. It's like, okay, it's a water pipe that was, created in Egypt back in, whatever. And what they smoke out of it is Middle Eastern flavored tobacco covered in molasses and has 0.05% nicotine. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, that's not drugs at all. But if you've never seen a hookah, what is it most commonly mistaken for?
Right, a bomb.
A bomb.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Yeah.
So when you don't have any knowledge about it, it's all brand new. It was like, why are you smoking? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was. Me and Corey even tried to smoke rocks once.
Don't say that.
Which is the clickbait we wanted for this
Right.
title.
Don't be smoking rocks. No.
That's how you guys just
But
have
here's
no
the thing.
idea.
Stay away from drugs, kids.
So what it was is instead of shisha, your Middle Eastern flavored tobacco, they would have these rocks covered in glycerin. And it was supposed to be like a replacement for
Yeah, it was the healthier version of it at the time.
And
right?
what was so
Probably
funny
like vaping.
is it was like, we're going to go back to Corey's and smoke some rocks. Which
Yeah.
We just keep telling people that.
yeah.
I think, I used to kind of get a kick out of people's responses because if you knew me as a human being,
Yeah.
you knew Jeff as a human being, right? You knew that we didn't smoke.
Yep.
You knew we didn't drink. So every now and again, I'd be like, we get a picture taken or something. I'd be like, hand me that beer.
Yeah, hand me that beer. Or it's like, caption.
And people would be like, I thought you didn't do
Yeah.
alcohol. Well, I can't believe you're doing
like-
this. And I'm like,
Caption with Corey packing a bowl.
yeah. I remember Bill Green.
Yeah.
So
Dude,
Sam's
Bill Green.
dad.
Bill Green's Maine.
Yeah, so he hated me for years, and because he thought that I was a bad influence
That you were
on
smoking
Sammy.
drugs.
Yeah, and he would go on my Facebook, and he went to Sam, and he goes, Sam, I thought Corey says he doesn't do any
Yeah,
drugs.
what is this?
There's a picture of him on Facebook with a bong.
With a bong.
And he's smoking, and Sam's like, "No, Dad,
No,
that's a
Dad.
hookah. Like that's not." And he's like, "Oh, I don't believe you." It was like a whole thing.
That's amazing.
And then I remember when, my cousin Sarah got married, and for some reason, Bill and Pam, Sam's parents, were there, and I took them for a ride in the truck while we're down on the island, and they were like, his mom said to me, she said, I want you to know that you saved my son's life.
Wow.
And she was like, I'm forever grateful for you for doing that. And I was like, I didn't do anything.
He did that.
I was just smoking rocks, dude.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I
I
was
said
bagging
that.
7-gram rocks and
I said
finishing
that.
them.
And that's the truth, right, about
Right.
alcoholism.
Yeah.
Is at the end of the day, it's so much harder to quit something than it is to never start doing something.
100%.
That's why I give people so much credit who are sober for a long time, because that is the toughest thing to do, is to stop doing something that's habitual.
Yeah.
No matter what, even if it's an oral fixation, it's so hard to do. So people should be commended so much more for breaking a habit than
addiction,
for never starting one in the first. I'm like, people ask me all the time.
You're
they're
so
like,
brave
oh,
for
you're
never.
a hero. Yeah. And I'm like, it
No,
was
I just chose
so
not.
easy.
Yeah.
It was so I've never thought about it. And honestly, once I got to a certain point in my life,
It kind of became part of your
it
personality.
was who I was. And then not only that, it was effortless.
Yeah.
It just was like, yeah, it became kind of like your gimmick in a
Yeah.
way. And you're like, oh, this is just who I am.
And they're like, oh, wow, are you like a recovering?
yeah, they're like, you're a hero.
Yeah, it's like, no, I just don't touch it.
And I always say I found a way to be comfortable in my own skin, because most people use alcohol as
I need to loosen
as
up.
a social
and-
lubricant,
yeah.
Right.
And I just found that, especially when I got into my early 20s and my late teens, I found that I just was comfortable with who I was, and I made a great group of friends. Most of them were great.
Well, okay, real quick. Think about this though. The old saying, "You are who you surround yourself with."
100%.
Think about this. I was hanging out with Corey, doesn't smoke or drink. I was hanging out with Hazard, doesn't smoke or drink. I was hanging out with Joe at the time, doesn't smoke or drink. And then it's like, Dave is still one of the most positive influences on my life.
100%.
So it's like, wow, like think of the company that you keep. I'm like, it makes it really easy.
It makes it easy, and I can't say exactly the same for myself.
Yeah.
You were pretty much the only one that was sober at that time period.
Yeah.
I was surrounded by a lot of crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, well, you and me both.
Yeah, and I lived with alcoholics and stuff, and now, like I said, Sam Green,
Yeah.
one of my very best friends in the whole world. He's the, godfather to my kids. Has been sober for like 15 years.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Maybe more. I could be
time.
underselling it. Yeah, and that's and I remember when it happened, and he came to me. He went to jail, and I don't want to throw his dirty laundry out there too much, but he went to jail over Christmas, and then he decided he was going to get sober, and he called me up, and he says, "Hey, can I just come hang out?" Mm-hmm. I said, "Of course, man.
Yeah, man.
You can come over whenever you want." And then he just started hanging out, and he never left, basically.
Sparking up a bowl right now.
Yeah, we started smoking hookah, and then
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? We're not only gonna do this, but of course we were going out a lot.
Yep.
I was like, I'm gonna acclimate you to this environment, being sober, and see how
That's
it can
important.
Be. Yeah,
Because a lot of my friends, in college, they had to go all the way.
100%.
But
yeah.
I could sit there and be like, I got stuff to do. I had 2 beers. I got to go home.
Yeah.
I have other things I have to do.
And that's usually the problem, right? That's usually
Yeah.
how you find out who a real alcoholic is the blackout point, right?
Yeah.
It's people who can't stop.
Yeah.
They get to a point and they're just like gone. And I mean, I always talk about Ian, right? He was one of the most entertaining people to be out
Dude.
down
He
in the
certainly
town with.
was.
Ever since we were teenagers, that kid is just energy.
And he would black out every night, and
Right.
we all of a sudden he would be doing something. We'd be all hanging out downtown, having a good time, and then he'd just turn around and just start running.
Yeah.
And he'd be gone, and we'd be like, "Where did Ian go?" And we're like, "We don't know." And then we get home that night, and there he is, face down on the ground,
Jesus.
soaking wet every time.
And you know what? Not to make a pun on the name of Corey's old band, but if you think about the 3 of us in this room and the crew we ran with and the access to the nightclubs and stuff that we had,
Had a lot of access.
which
yeah.
doesn't exist in Portland, Maine anymore.
It really
We
doesn't.
were the last of our kind
It certainly was
to
yeah.
live that life.
True.
Because
Yeah.
think, I had been going to the Old Port since I was 16 years old.
I know.
I would go to Club Ozone 2, Chem Free, underage.
Yeah, the industry.
And then the industry, 18 plus on Friday and Saturday, Chem Free on Sunday. I was literally out 3 to 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And we did that into our 20s.
oh yeah,
which is crazy.
Well
And
into
then
our 20s.
we figured out how to make money with it
Yeah.
in our 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, for me, it was more about, like I said, I was not a popular kid in school.
Yeah.
I was not a popular kid. I had a group of friends, but I wasn't. I hated high school.
Same.
I could not stand it. I couldn't wait to get out. I thought I
I feel like
was
school
going
was
to
kind of
leave.
easy for you, Dave.
High school was so difficult.
Really?
Academically.
Okay.
But college was so easy academically.
Same. So I'm same, right? Like I honestly didn't. I never was very focused on my academics. I just never was. I never thought about it. I just showed up, took tests, and I barely graduated high school. But you're right. When I got into college, I felt like a genius.
Yeah.
Compared to everyone around me. I'm like,
They test you
we did this
so-
stuff in 8th grade.
Does this go
Yeah.
back to the common sense thing at the beginning of the show?
That's part
Sure.
of it. But most of it was like, and I don't know if this is.
The education, right?
Yeah. I mean, Chevrolet you have to pay for.
Oh yeah.
Okay. But that one writing class had senior year. All you have to do in college basically is write.
Okay.
And if you could bang out a paper, like a 10-pager in the night before, I was doing that every time.
Wow.
They're like,
Same.
you have a month. I'm
Right.
like, I'm not going to do this in a month. I'm going to
No,
do this
I'll
in
do it
one
in a
night.
night.
And I'm
Yeah.
going to get an A. And I did every time.
Same.
Wow.
Honestly, I did that right through high school. I don't. Again, I don't know how I graduated. I remember I had a meeting with all my teachers my senior year. I was about to fail out of high school.
Damn.
And also my dad and my mom came in, and then my grandfather came in too, and then,
The whole fam.
and then all the teachers, right? And we're all sitting around, and they said, "So we're going over Corey's stuff, right? And basically, he hasn't done any homework for the last 3 years."
We're gonna hold them back.
3 years.
Yeah, they were like, "No homework."
Did
None.
you just consciously go, I'm not doing that?
No, I was working a job.
Okay.
I was going after school and I was working. And
Where were you working at again? You said it was a corner store.
Yeah, over in Westbrook on Saco Street.
Which one was it again?
Lively's.
Lively's,
variety.
yeah.
Yeah, my uncle owned it. And so I was working there, and I was doing it because I needed to help my family. I needed to be able to pay for my own things. I didn't have lunch money. I didn't have.
Yeah.
We were very, very poor. We
Yep.
just didn't have money, and I was fine with that. I didn't know any better. I knew that I thought that you were supposed to go get
That's
a job
just how life was.
and work and work your tail off. And so I just, and then you start, again, my mind was focused on girls. It really was. I didn't think about anything but girls.
Because
and
you hadn't even found music yet.
No, I hadn't. I did and I didn't, right? It was starting to evolve, right? It was starting to come out of me. But we sat in this meeting and the teachers were like, first off, you haven't done your homework.
Yeah.
And they're like, but we're looking at your test grades because you're showing, and they're like, well, you're sleeping in class. You're showing up sleeping because I was not, so tired from working so much. And they're like, you show up and your test grades are through the roof.
Yeah.
They're like, why?
How is that possible?
And they said, are you studying? And I said, no. And they said, well, how are you learning if you're not awake in class? And I literally, what I was doing was opening the book about an hour before the test and reviewing what we were doing and just zip through it and be like, all right, I got it.
Here we go.
And I'd show up. And fortunately, like the SATs, a lot of tests are multiple choice.
Key.
And I am the master of the law of deduction.
There you go.
Of breaking it down, saying it can't be that, it's got to be between these two, and then just
probably this one.
Yeah, swing and a miss, just going for it. And I was right a lot, and that's how I got through. And my SAT scores were really high because of it. I want to say I got 1380 the first time I took them. Again,
wow, that's pretty high,
without
right?
studying, without just.
And that's when they were out of 1600.
I never even took them. I didn't dare to.
They were, dude. That was tough.
I knew I was dumb.
Yeah, and then I did 1420 or something or 40 on the second time.
Golly, bro.
And that's what got me into college. And then I was in college for a semester, and I was like, man, I'm good.
Yeah.
I got to go hang out with JR. And we're gonna go make music. Yeah.
Dude, I remember barely getting out of high school as well. It's so interesting doing a show with Dave every week because as much as our love and interests are a lot of the same stuff, our childhoods and our upbringings are very different. But Corey's and I are very similar.
Very similar, yeah.
And I remember, like, Dave went to a private school, which is like a super cool thing. My family could never afford something like that. And I remember senior year I was technically a junior. So I had to do a senior English and a junior English class on the same day. And I had to also do my vote class, which counted for 2 credits. It was marketing.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Nice.
Yeah. So
that's interesting.
I remember we had taken this family trip to Disney World because my sister's team got invited to this tournament. My family could never afford to go to Disney World, but the cheer program bought out the place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So because of that trip, I missed too many days, and I had been busting my ass nonstop. I even was working with our pal Joe about this book that he read like 4 years before me. I was way behind, right? He's like, oh, this is easy. You got this. It's just this, it's this, it's this. But my junior English class, we got to write poems and rhymes. And I was like, oh, wow. And my teacher loved mine so much, she would read them out loud in front of the class. And there was like, a couple double syllable rhyme schemes and different things and whatever.
Do you remember any of them?
Dude, I have no idea. I really don't.
I have one that I remember that I wrote, same kind of scenario, and I'll recite it for you. And it was about this kid I had who was friends with, and you guys remember him. His name was Brad.
Yeah, B-Rad.
And he had Tourette's.
Yeah, big time. Okay?
And so I wrote, my grandfather always used to say these really funny quips to me, these jokes, because he's like a dirty joke kind of guy. And, the old joke, what's the one that's, there once was a man from Nantucket. Right, that one. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a version for myself about Brad.
Oh, gosh.
And it was like, there once was a boy who could swing. He would always do this weird thing. Every time he would swish, his head would just twitch. Tourette's caused that ball to go ping.
Oh, gosh.
I put that, I sent that in, and they read it in front of the
whole
whole class.
That. That's amazing.
I get canceled now if I did that.
Well, dude.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
So, getting back to that.
Sorry.
Where they're like, oh, Mrs. Ramsey, like he, or maybe it was Pace at that point. He's missed too many days. My mom shows up to the school as only Julie can in the brown bomber.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I remember that.
Yeah.
Just smoke shooting at the back of the vehicle. Right? Shouldn't have been street legal. Goes into the school, and of course, what is Julie Pace wearing? Her pajamas. Mom goes into the school and starts just going up one side of these people, down the other, giving them the what for.
I can see that.
About why I should, this isn't fair. Like, he had to, and eventually they were just like, okay, golly. Like, yeah, he can graduate. But I had busted my butt. And I always heard this thing, correct me if this isn't true, but they said, like, sometimes they'll let people walk for their graduation, but if their diploma isn't signed,
right,
then they have to stay back.
Yeah, sometimes it's like that or the opposite, right? Or they won't let someone walk even if, like, because they get in trouble or something like that, but
so,
they still
dude,
graduate.
as I'm going across that stage, once I get it and I do the handshake and all that, I look real quick, shuffle along, and then I look real quick and I shuffle
You're just
along.
making sure that you
and
got
I look
it.
again, and then I get back to my seat and I look again, and I'm like,
it's all there.
I think I'm good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was tough getting out of high school, but once I did, I felt like, I felt like I really found myself once I got out, but the majority of people that we went to high school with,
they went the other way. Well,
yeah.
That's the old peak in high school thing, right?
You
hear that
that was
a
always
lot.
the joke, but it's kind of true. Did you know?
Is true.
Yeah.
It is true. And I, like I said, and that was kind of where I was leading to, was that I feel like that when I finally got out of high school was when I finally became that kid, that popular kid that I always, kind of envied. And then not only that, I just felt so much more comfortable in my skin. And I found a group of people and a group of friends that were kind of headed in that same direction. I think that fighting really played a big part in that. I enjoyed it so much, and I found a people, guys.
Well, we were like angry youth, man.
Yeah, and 100%. And I, it's weird, but I always tell people like that one of my biggest, I'm just an adrenaline junkie as a person, and I think that's why I loved fighting so much. I enjoyed that your heart rate going up all of a sudden and getting into a fisticuffs. And then once you do it once, you yearn for it again, and you want that feeling. It's like a drug, and it was my addiction, and I loved it. And again, it came with consequences. I've got missing teeth because of it. I have a permanent bruise in my right eye from it. I definitely lost hearing in part of my ear. Like, I've had issues because of all the fights that I got into. But my skin's a little tougher. I'm able to overcome obstacles a little bit better. I know what it's like to legitimately be knocked down and get back up again, right? There's a little bit to it. You feel a little more confident. It's that old saying, right, where you're a little more physical presence will give you more confidence, right, in life. You know that if you're face to face with another man, you have a little more confidence inside of you if you know that, hey, I could physically outdo you now.
The knowledge is what gives you the advantage.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know, then either you're going to step up or fight or flight.
Yeah.
Fight or flight. Right.
You're like, oh, I'm going to stand my ground. I know what's going to happen.
No matter what. And in my industry, because it's so blue collar, you see it a lot. You see people go nose to nose. A lot of people sticking their chest out. A lot of peacocking. A lot of people going nose to nose with each other. I've been in several situations where I've had close to, if not full-on physical altercations with welders, with other people in my industry, because it is a little more hard.
Right.
There's a little more rough around
You're
the
not
edges.
seeing that at the office.
You don't see it at the office, right?
This is like,
I legitimately threw a water bottle at someone's head because he stabbed me in the back. Like, I got into it so bad and I'm not proud of that. Like, my temper gets the best of me on more occasions than I'd like, even in my personal life. And I have to apologize a lot for it. And fortunately, I found martial arts because it has taken that, and it's been an outlet, and it's been a great outlet. And I wish I could even do it more than I do now. It's that old, like, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. That's that whole thing, right? I legitimately feel that way on a regular basis because I have to remind myself, like, this is who you are. This is this has changed your life for the better. Like, you could have been so much worse. You could have been like a lot of those guys that we hung out with and in jail. But you chose to do something else. And I was very lucky that I had certain people come into my life that changed me for the better and that forced them out of me. And I'll tell this quick story because it's so relevant to this conversation. And Dave, you never heard this, but I've told this to Jeff a few times, or I told it to you the other day, I think. One of my first martial arts experiences. I was hired to do that job. My dad was friends with a martial arts master.
With sensei.
Yeah, my sensei. Yeah, and he offered me a job, probably out of pity, to try and help me out, to be his assistant, to be his senpai, which is like I go around and teach classes with him. I would spend 10 hours a day with this man. and he's one of the most wonderful people that ever came into my life. He's so generous, but he's a little unhinged. He just is. His story is remarkable. He had a stroke when he was 20 and lost feeling in his left side, and basically had a brain injury because of it, and wrote his own book. Wrote a book about him, finding martial arts and how it changed his life. Developed his own martial arts system.
His own system, yeah.
And it got into the Hall of Fame for martial arts because of it.
That's kind of badass.
It's
dude.
so awesome. And again, he's one of the most wonderful people I know. So generous. Has helped me with so much in my life. So much so that my kids call him Grandpa Sensei. Right?
I love that.
He's a very important person in my life. So, anyways, my first day with him. Mind you, he's a little unhinged. Okay,
God.
So the first thing I do is I sign a waiver.
Yep.
I walk in, and basically the whole thing is he wants to see if what you got at, what you're made out of. Now he knew what was going on in my life. Mm-hmm. He had a good idea. He knew that I was getting in trouble.
He knew your dad.
He knew my dad. He knew that I had a lot of screwed up stuff that had happened. So he says, "All right, the first thing you do," and Jeff experienced this himself, as you grab, he gives you 2 empty cups. He says, "I want you to sprint to the beach," which was a couple miles away. Sprint to the beach, fill one up with water, one up with sand. Bring them back. Don't spill them.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, the fuck.
Like, what is the lesson here, Corey?
Yeah. So you do it. I remember I just went right into the water.
Bolted.
I was like, I just went directly in. I was so like, again, that grab it and growl mentality. Yeah. Like, I'm just gonna do this, and I get all the way back to the dojo. I give, here you go, Sensei. And he's like, okay, go dump him out.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck?
What was this for?
Basically, it was his way of saying, "Now I know you'll do it. I'll know you jump through hoops for me."
Yeah.
Okay. So then he stands in front of me, and he says, "We're going to do an exercise." And he knew I had a really rough childhood with family abuse, with all that good stuff. He knew that things were really hard for me. So he said, "All right, I'm going to slap you in the face." And I'm like, what?
What is this about?
And without warning,
and you signed the waiver.
Yeah, I signed. I'm done. I'm in. I'm all in at this point, right? And I think I'm a tough guy. I think I'm tough at this point, right? I didn't know. I was like, man, I'm about to really, really take a crash course on being tough, right?
Yeah.
He's got this like big arm, big bionic basically arm because
with a watch on it.
And he's only been using this arm for 40 years now. So he hauls off and he just slaps me right across the face. And I'm like, what? I'd go red. I'm like,
eyes
son
watering,
of a bitch. I'm mad.
Ugh.
Yeah, I'm mad. And he goes, now hit me. So I'm like, what? This guy's crazy, right?
I'm not going to hit this older guy.
I slap him back, but I may be like 50%.
You hold back.
Yeah, I hold back. And he's like, don't be holding back. He gets mad at me. And he hits me again. And so I slap him, and we go back and forth and back. And I'd say after about probably 20 times.
Oh, man.
Right? My face is red. I'm at this point, though, I am on my knees, and I'm crying. Just tears are pouring out of me. It was like
everything came out.
Everything came out, and he literally grabs me underneath it always breaks me up, but he grabbed me underneath the arm and picked me up, and he says, now I've brought you down. It's time to start bringing you back up again.
Man.
What a lesson.
Yeah. What a lesson. And it was everything I needed at that point in my life. And it was like from that day on, I'm in, dude. Mm-hmm. I am so in. I'm going to dedicate my life to this. And everything became tunnel vision on martial arts. I'm learning everything I can. I'm going to spend every moment I can with you and learn everything I can. And not only from him, we had multiple amount of instructors. And now my assistant, John, was actually one of my instructors in those days.
Yeah.
And he's
a bad
dude. He's a 3rd degree black belt.
Yeah.
And he is not only is he a bad dude, but he's a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And he's taken such good care of me. And I try to do the same to him. And we've developed this wonderful bond. And he's Uncle JP in our house. And I'm just very, very, very lucky to have had that happen to me, especially at that time, because I had just gotten in trouble with the law and I had gone to jail for something someone else did. One of our friends stabbed someone, and I had gone to jail and had to go into this and be interrogated, and they had our pictures on the wall. It was so bad. and it was like the perfect
We'll save
time.
all that for another part.
Right. I'm sorry, but
yeah,
Man.
that was it, and and I went into martial arts, and it changed my life
Changed
forever,
your life,
and I haven't stopped doing it since.
Unbelievable.
dude.
Can't top that.
No, I think just I've brought you all the way down. Now I'm gonna build you back up. It's almost like I had to break all your bad habits. I had to get rid of all that angst and all that anger you had built up over all these years. Now I can start to repair you.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're gonna wrap this up with. Looking at the clock, I know you got to get out of here. So
I got to go be a dad.
yeah, this has just been super cool. Some of these stories on here, like I'm okay with being vulnerable enough to tell, because that's not the person that I am today, nor is it who you are, nor is it who Dave is. We've all grown. But yeah, episode 26, and to have Corey in here, and just to be able to talk to two of my best friends and roll sound, this is something that we'll be able to listen to for years, and I'm really proud about that. So for Corey, for Dave, I'm JR. This has been Hangin' with Homie. We'll catch you next week. Don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe, all three if you're feeling up to it. And remember, most importantly, it's cool to be you. Peace.
Kwansu.
One, two, dude.
All right. That's a wrap.